My name is Karen. I'm 35 years old, and this year I canceled Thanksgiving. I don't mean the parade or the football games or the general chaos that floods American kitchens every November. I mean the Thanksgiving that has lived in my house for 20 years. The one I started at 15, when my mother's cough turned into something that stole her breath. And I became the girl who cooked instead of the girl who dreamed. I mean the holiday that became my proof of love, my penance, and the reason I forgot what it feels like to be taken care of. I was standing in the pantry that afternoon with a legal pad in my hand, the yellow paper soft from use, corners curling, fingerprints of flour turning it ghost white. I'd written the same list every year: butter, unsalted, sage, thyme, cranberries, 2 bags, sweet potatoes, 8 pounds, marshmallows, pecans, heavy cream, more butter. The turkey was already thawing in the fridge, early the way Mom liked it. I was tired before it even started. The kitchen light buzzed faintly, and somewhere in the house the pipes groaned like old bones. I thought about how quiet it always was here, except for the sounds of things that needed fixing. That's when my phone started ringing. The screen lit up with Nyla, my middle sister. "Hey," I said, pressing the phone between my ear and shoulder as I tried to remember whether I still had enough foil for the roasting pans. "Hey, sis," she said, dragging the word out in that sing-song tone she used whenever she was about to hand me another responsibility wrapped in the paper of affection. "So, Josh and I are coming this year." I stared at the legal pad, pen hovering. "Okay. And also," she added quickly, "his friend Aaron doesn't have anywhere to go. His family's out of town, so we told him he could come. You don't mind, right?" Of course I didn't mind. I never did. I was the person no one needed to ask twice. "That's fine," I said, hearing my own voice. Flat. Careful. "Perfect. And, can you make that pecan pie again? The one with the bourbon glaze?" "Josh loved that last year." "Oh, and the green bean casserole, but the fancy one, not the soup version." I let out a small laugh that didn't sound like me. "The fancy one," I repeated. "Yeah, you're the best, Karen. Love you." The call ended, and for a moment the house was completely still. The refrigerator hummed. The clock on the wall ticked once, twice. I looked down at the list in my hand and wrote, "Crispy shallots," even though I wanted to throw the pen. Before I could, the phone rang again. "Oli," the screen said. My youngest sister. "Karen," she burst out. "Okay, don't hate me, but I might have invited a few friends. Just 2 or 3. They don't have anywhere to go, and they've heard me brag about your cooking for years." "2 or 3, I interrupted. "Maybe 4. She laughed nervously. "But they'll bring wine. And I promise I'll help this time. I'm a grown-up now. I can totally handle it. I'll come early and everything." My eyes traveled over the kitchen, the mixing bowls stacked unevenly, the turkey thawing in its foil pan, the faded tiles that used to shine when Mom was alive. "Okay," I said quietly. "Thanks, sis. You're the best. Love you." The call clicked off. And I just stood there. I wasn't angry. Not at first. I was hollow. Like the house itself had exhaled and left me inside it, small and tired. Every year it was the same. Nyla with her perfect hair and her "I'll bring wine," Oli with her chaotic energy and her "I'll help this time," and me, the woman who made it all happen, who turned chaos into a table full of food and family photos that looked warmer than the truth. I leaned against the counter, pressing my palms flat to the cool surface, trying to catch my breath. It's not that I hated Thanksgiving. I used to love it. I loved the smell of butter melting into sage, the sound of laughter spilling from the dining room, the way Mom's eyes crinkled when she told me I'd saved the day because dinner came out on time. But now it felt like I was keeping something alive that everyone else had stopped caring about. They'd all gone on. College, careers, boyfriends, trips, pictures of sunsets in Italy, and brunches with people I'd never met. I stayed here. I stayed because someone had to. Because the house was in my name after Mom died. Because the girl still needed a place to come home to. Only lately I'd started wondering, what if they weren't coming home to me anymore? What if they were just coming home for what I could give them? I went to the window and looked outside. The maple tree in the front yard was half bare, leaves scattered across the sidewalk like confetti after a parade. A kid from down the street rode his bike past, laughing, his scarf trailing behind him like a banner. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt that light. My life had become a rotation of responsibilities. Work at the clinic, grocery runs, bills, keeping the house from falling apart, and waiting for those phone calls that always began with, "Hey, sis," and ended with, "You're the best." And maybe I was. Maybe I'd been the best for so long that no one ever asked what it cost. I glanced down at my hands. The skin around my knuckles was cracked from the cold, nails short from washing dishes and cleaning. When was the last time someone had thanked me? Not the polite thanks tossed over a shoulder, but the kind that meant, "I see you." The answer came quickly. Never. I thought of Nyla's apartment, the one she'd shown off last month on FaceTime, with white walls and an expensive rug and Josh in the background laughing about adulting, and Oli posting pictures of herself in Paris last spring, holding champagne with her friends, captions like "finally living my best life." Meanwhile, my best life was this: a kitchen that smelled like onion and fatigue, a grocery list older than my youth, and a house that still called me mom every time something broke. The next day at work, I caught myself zoning out during a patient intake. My coworker Bethany nudged me afterward and said, "Rough day?" I nodded. I didn't tell her that I'd barely slept, that I'd lain awake replaying every holiday of the last 20 years, every joke I pretended to laugh at, every apology I swallowed when someone arrived late or left early or forgot to say thank you. On my lunch break, I scrolled through old photos on my phone. In every one, I was in the background, holding a tray, setting a dish, half smiling while someone else blew out candles or clinked glasses. My sisters looked radiant, free, like people who believed the world would always feed them. I locked the screen and stared at my reflection in the dark glass. I didn't recognize her. When I got home, the voicemail light on the phone blinked. 2 messages. The first was Nyla again. "Hey, sis. So I told Josh we should all wear matching outfits for a cute photo. Can you check if we still have Mom's old tablecloth? It'll make a great backdrop." The second was Uli. "Hey, Karen. Just confirming. You're doing turkey and stuffing, right? I'll bring dessert if I have time. Oh, and please make that gravy smooth this year. Josh hates lumps." That was it. No, how are you? No, need any help? I stood there listening to the quiet tick of the answering machine. It felt louder than a scream. That night, I pulled out Mom's old recipe box, the one with the handwriting faded into ghost gray loops. Mashed potatoes, double cream, sweet potatoes, brown sugar, butter. Stuffing, sourdough, celery, apples, thyme. The cards were worn from years of being touched, smudged with fingerprints, edges soft as cloth. I used to love tracing her letters. It made me feel close to her, like maybe she could see me. But tonight, looking at them, I felt something else. A sharp ache, like betrayal. These recipes had been my inheritance and my chain. I'd kept her traditions alive so long I didn't realize I'd buried myself inside them. The next morning, Nyla called again. "Hey, so Josh was saying maybe we could eat earlier this year? His parents always start at 2. Oh, and can you get that special sparkling cider I like? The one from Trader Joe's. I know it's expensive, but it's not Thanksgiving without it." My throat tightened. "You know, I'm working the extra hours this week." "Oh, right, but you'll have time. You always make it happen." I wanted to say maybe I don't want to make it happen anymore, but I didn't. Because I never do. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the wall. The paint was chipped near the corner where the chair always bumped it. I'd meant to fix that too. I just never had the time. How many things in this house were like that? Small cracks I promised myself I'd fix when life got easier. Maybe I was one of them. By Wednesday, my body was moving on autopilot. I'd done the grocery run, scrubbed the counters, washed the good plates. But inside, something was shifting, sort like a crack widening under the surface. When Oli texted, "Can you pick me up from the station?" "My friends are coming later in another car," I typed. "Sure," then stared at the word until my eyes blurred. Sure, always sure. I thought about my teenage years, the friends I'd lost touch with because I couldn't go out, the boy I never dated because I had to get home and make dinner for my sisters, the college I never attended because guardians don't get to leave. All the versions of myself I'd folded away like old linens, neatly packed and forgotten. That evening, while peeling potatoes, I heard the sound of laughter outside. A group of neighbors setting up lights, their kids running around with cocoa cups. I watched them from the window, the glow of the string lights reflecting on the glass. For a second, I imagined walking outside, joining them, laughing for real. Then I looked back at the sink piled high with dishes and the cutting board streaked with starch and thought, who would I even be out there? A woman without a purpose? Or a woman finally free of one? The knife slipped in my hand, not enough to cut, just enough to sting. I dropped it in the sink, breathing hard. It wasn't anger, not the loud, destructive kind. It was quieter, heavier. Like realizing you've been underwater for years and mistook the drowning for swimming. I leaned on the counter, my breath catching, the world tilting slightly around me. I couldn't do it again. Not another Thanksgiving. Not another day pretending that this was love, when really it was duty wrapped in habit. For the first time in 20 years, I let the thought form fully in my mind. What if I just didn't? Didn't cook? Didn't clean? Didn't set the table? The idea scared me, and thrilled me. I looked around the kitchen, at the oven scarred by years of use, the fridge covered in magnets from places I'd never been, the photo of the three of us smiling at last year's dinner, me in the background, as always. The silence pressed in like a truth I couldn't ignore. I set the potato peeler down, wiped my hands on the dish towel, and whispered to no one. I can't live like this anymore. The words hung there, fragile but real. For the first time, I didn't reach for the list, or the timer, or the phone. I just stood still, breathing. And in that stillness, something inside me shifted. A quiet click, like a lock opening. I didn't know what I would do yet. I only knew that this year something would be different. That, maybe for once, I'd give myself the kind of Thanksgiving I'd been giving everyone else. The oven ticked as it cooled. The house creaked, and the world outside kept moving. But inside me, everything had stopped. And in that silence, I finally heard it, the sound of my own life beginning to speak. When people say it goes by fast, they're lying. It doesn't go fast. It stretches. It grinds. It builds up year after year until one day you look up and realize that your 20s, your laughter, your choices, they've all been traded for grocery lists and emergency contact forms. I was 15, the year our mother stopped getting out of bed before noon. It started small. A cough, a doctor's visit, some pills she said made her tired. Just a winter thing, she told me, pressing my cheek with her cool hand. You'll have to help a little more till I'm back on my feet. A little more became a lot more. That first Thanksgiving, she tried to cook. She sat in her chair wrapped in a blanket, giving me instructions between coughing fits. Lower the heat, baby. No, not that pan, the big one. Check the bird. The butter's in the freezer. Yes, that's fine. It'll melt. By the time the turkey was done, she'd fallen asleep. I remember standing there in the kitchen, knife trembling in my hand, thinking, if I mess this up, she'll be disappointed in me. That's how it started. Fear disguised as love. When she died 3 years later, the social worker asked if I wanted to sign the guardianship papers. If you don't, she said, they'll go into foster care. Nyla was 16. Uli was 14. And I was 18, barely legal but already old. So I signed. I became the guardian. The title sounded noble. It felt like a cage. The first few years were pure survival. I worked at a diner, took night shifts, learned how to make a week's groceries stretch to a month. I taught myself how to unclog a drain, patch a roof, and fake calm when the electricity bill came before payday. The girls were just kids. Neela was sweet and terrified, trying to fill the silence Mom left. Uli was wild, angry, always testing where the edges were. Every morning I'd pack lunches, iron shirts, leave notes on the fridge that said things like, "Good luck on your test," or "Don't forget your jacket." Sometimes I'd sign them Love K because the word Mom still felt too big to wear. They both said, "You don't have to do all this." But I did, because no one else would. There were nights I'd sit at the kitchen table with bills spread out like puzzle pieces, whispering numbers under my breath until my eyes blurred. Nyla would creep in with her homework, sit across from me and say, "We'll be okay, right?" And I'd smile like someone who believed it. When I was 21, my friends were in college dorms. They sent photos from spring break, beaches, drinks with umbrellas, sunsets. I sent them photos of my sisters in Halloween costumes I'd made out of old clothes. They said I was so strong. I hated that word. Strong is what people call you when they don't plan on helping. Oli started sneaking out when she was 15. The first time, she didn't come home until 3 a.m. I sat by the window waiting, pretending to read. When she walked in smelling like cigarette smoke and rain, I didn't yell. I just said, I was scared. She rolled her eyes and muttered, "You're not my mom." She was right, but the words still hurt like a knife under the ribs. Nyla tried to keep peace between us. "She doesn't mean it," she whispered. "She's just figuring things out." But I'd already figured things out. I'd figured out that love without boundaries turns into obligation. And obligation without gratitude becomes a slow form of grief. By 25, I was working at the medical clinic. Front desk, long hours, health insurance if I never took a day off. It wasn't a dream job, but it was stable, and stability was the currency of our family. I missed birthdays. I missed parties. I missed a proposal from a man I thought I might marry because I couldn't leave Uli alone the night she had the flu. He said, "You can't keep living for them." I said, "If I don't, who will?" He didn't have an answer. A week later, he stopped calling. I cried once quietly while scrubbing a pot. Then I dried my face and kept scrubbing. When Nyla went to college, I was proud and terrified. We couldn't afford it, not really, but she got a scholarship and a part-time job. I drove her there myself 4 hours away and pretended not to notice the panic in her eyes when I left. Oli hugged her once at the curb and then went back to her phone. For the first time in years, the house felt too big. I thought maybe I'd finally get to live a little. Read a book, take a trip, learn to sleep past 6. But then the bills kept coming. And Oli needed braces, and the car died. So I picked up extra shifts. Again. Every year when Thanksgiving rolled around, the girls would come home. Nyla would arrive first, buzzing with stories about college and boys and professors who totally changed her perspective on life. Oli would follow, rolling her eyes, pretending not to care. They'd both bring laundry. They'd both ask what was for dinner before they asked how I was. And every year I'd smile and say, the usual. I'd cook for days. Pies cooling on the counter, potatoes whipping under the mixer, the kitchen fogged with steam and noise. They'd sit at the table laughing, scrolling on their phones, promising to help in a minute. That minute never came. Sometimes I'd look at them across the table and wonder if they knew how much I'd given up to keep them whole. When Uli graduated high school, she moved to the city with her boyfriend. "I need space," she told me. "I don't want to end up stuck like you." She said it gently, but I heard every syllable like a slap. She didn't mean to be cruel. She just didn't see it. The weight of the roof over her head, the steady hum of the refrigerator, the quiet safety of a life someone else held up for her. She didn't see me. Nyla got married at 27. A small ceremony. She asked me to make the cake because it would feel more personal. I spent 2 nights baking it after work. My name wasn't on the seating chart. When I mentioned it, she blinked and said, "Oh, I didn't think you'd mind. Your family. You can sit anywhere." I told her it was fine. It wasn't. Years blurred. Birthdays turned into text messages. Visits turned into quick weekends. My phone would buzz with requests. "Can you send me the recipe? Can you check on the house?" Can you order flowers for Mom's grave this year? I always said yes. Sometimes I wondered if they remembered I was still here, that I had a life beyond the favors. I tried dating again once at 33. His name was Alan. He was kind, patient. He said he liked women who knew what they wanted. But every time we made plans, one of the girls called. Nyla needed advice, Ollie needed money, the water heater broke, the dog was sick. Alan finally said, "You don't have room for anyone else in your life." He wasn't wrong. I let him go quietly, the same way I'd let go of everything else. It wasn't that I resented my sisters. I loved them. God, I loved them more than anything. But love, I've learned, can be a kind of hunger. It consumes you until there's nothing left to feed it with. And somewhere along the way, I forgot that I was supposed to be more than the person who kept everyone else alive. Last year, Nyla called me the night before Thanksgiving. "Hey, can you make sure there's almond milk this time? Josh's stomach's been weird." Ollie texted right after. "Can you skip the onions and the stuffing? My friend's allergic." I stared at both messages for a long time before answering. Then I typed, "Sure," and that was the moment I knew I'd lost myself completely. It wasn't a single event, not one explosion, not one betrayal. It was a slow erasure. Piece by piece, I'd handed over my days until all that was left were leftovers. The parts of life no one else wanted. The girls never meant to take advantage. They just grew up in the safety I built. They learned that someone would always catch them when they fell, that someone was me. They lived brightly, loudly, jobs, parties, photos, in pretty places. I lived in the same house, same street, same kitchen, same apron. Sometimes when the house was quiet, I'd whisper into the air, "I'm still here," as if saying it could make it true. There's a photo I keep in a drawer. The three of us the year after Mom died. Nyla's in the middle holding Ollie's hand, and I'm behind them, arms around both their shoulders. We're smiling, but my eyes look older than they should. People used to say, "You did such a good job. You raised them right." And I'd nod, pretending that was enough, as if the success of their lives could replace the missing pieces of mine. But I never built one for myself. I only built theirs. The week before everything changed, I dreamed of my mother for the first time in years. She was standing in the kitchen, stirring something in her big blue bowl. When I tried to speak, she turned to me and said, "You can stop now, baby." I woke up crying. Not the quiet kind, the kind that breaks something open. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at my hands, realizing I didn't even know what I liked anymore. I couldn't remember the last time I'd done something just because I wanted to. That morning, Uli called to ask about the holiday menu, and Nyla texted to remind me to clean up the guest room early this time. And something inside me cracked. Small at first, then deeper. Now, looking back, I think the moment I snapped wasn't really about Thanksgiving at all. It was about 20 years of being invisible. 20 years of putting myself last. 20 years of being the one they leaned on without ever looking down to see the cracks forming beneath my feet. I gave them everything. My youth, my sleep, my laughter, my plans, because I thought that's what love was. But love, real love, shouldn't erase you. That was the truth I finally saw, clear as daylight and twice as cruel. So when I stood in that kitchen, holding the phone, listening to their cheerful voices planning a holiday I'd spend breaking my back while they posted smiling photos, I felt it. The shift. The quiet, terrifying certainty that I couldn't live like this anymore. The years that weren't mine had already been spent. And for the first time, I wanted something that was... I didn't know yet what I'd do. I just knew this. I was done surviving on scraps of gratitude. I was done being the background of my own life. And somewhere deep inside, a small voice, tired but steady, I whispered, "You can stop now, baby." When I finally decided to sell the house, it didn't feel like a grand act of rebellion. It felt quiet, soft, like closing a book you've read too many times. The idea had been sitting inside me for weeks, patient and heavy. I'd wake up, make coffee, glance out at the maple tree in the front yard, and imagine it belonging to someone else. Another family, another woman who didn't carry ghosts in her pockets. One morning, I looked around the kitchen. The counters I'd scrubbed smooth over the years. The window I'd once taped shut in winter. The faint burn mark on the oven handle from the year Uli tried to help, and thought, "You've done your time here, Karen." I opened the drawer and pulled out Cheryl's business card, Dream Homes Realty. Her perfect smile was still there, ink unbothered by time. I dialed the number. "Dream Homes Realty, this is Cheryl," she chirped. "Hi, this is Karen. We spoke a few weeks ago about possibly selling my house." "Oh, yes, I remember. 3-bedroom, corner lot, right? How are you doing, honey?" I hesitated. No one had called me honey in years. "I'm ready," I said. "Ready to sell?" "Ready to go." She came by that same afternoon, breezy and professional, with bright red nails and perfume that smelled like citrus and confidence. "Well," she said, stepping into the foyer, "you've kept it lovely. So much charm. And original wood floors?" I nodded. "They creak. A lot." "People pay extra for character," she said, smiling. "We'll list it that way." As she moved through the rooms, I followed in silence. It felt strange watching her touch things I'd lived with for decades. The edge of the mantel, the banister where Mom used to rest her hand, the kitchen counter dented by 20 years of chopping. She took photos, humming to herself. "This house has good bones," she said. It did, and those bones were tired. When she finished her notes, she looked at me. "So what's next for you?" "Florida," I said, before I could second-guess it. "Somewhere warm. I've never been." Cheryl grinned. "A new chapter. I like that. You'll be sipping cocktails on the beach while I handle everything here." I smiled faintly. "That sounds perfect." That night, I pulled out the old recipe box and set it on the counter. Mom's handwriting smiled up at me from every card: gravy, pie, stuffing. I traced a finger along the edges, then closed the lid. I decided to leave it behind. Not because I didn't love it, but because it belonged to this version of me, the caretaker, the constant cook, the invisible host. I'd already lived enough years for her. Instead, I took one card, pumpkin pie, Mom's version, and tucked it into my wallet. Not as a recipe, but as proof I'd survived. The house sold faster than I expected. Cheryl called after 3 showings. "Full asking price," she said, practically vibrating through the phone. "You did good, Karen." I thanked her, though my throat tightened around the words. That night, I stood in the hallway with a mug of tea and stared at the family height marks on the wall. Nyla at 6, Uli at 4, the pencil lines uneven and proud. I ran my hand over them one by one. I thought about painting over them before the buyers came. I even bought the paint. But I couldn't. Some stories don't need erasing, they just need to end. Packing was harder than I imagined. Every drawer was a time capsule. Grocery receipts from 2009, birthday candles melted together, letters from my sisters, thank you notes that said, "You're the best," in rushed handwriting. I filled 3 boxes with donations, one with trash and one with the things I couldn't part with. Mom's scarf, a photo of the 3 of us in front of the house, the deed, and my passport. I packed quietly, methodically, the way I'd learned to survive everything else. I didn't tell Neela or Uli. They called a few times that week, their usual cheerful chaos spilling through the phone. "Hey, what kind of pie are you doing this year? Should we come Wednesday night or Thursday morning? Can you wash the guest sheets before we get there?" Each time, I said, "We'll talk soon." And each time, my voice sounded calmer than I felt. They didn't notice. They never did. On the day Cheryl called to finalize the paperwork, I left work early. The clinic felt like another version of the same story. Me keeping things running while everyone else moved through their lives. When I walked into the title office, the air smelled faintly of coffee and printer ink. A young man in a navy suit handed me a pen. "Just sign here, Ms. Carver." It was strange hearing that name in his mouth. Formal, detached. Not Karen, not sis, not the best. I signed. The pages made a soft whisper as they turned, one after another. And when the last line was done, the weight I'd carried for 20 years slipped off my shoulders like a coat I hadn't realized was burning. Cheryl hugged me on the way out. Congratulations, honey. When are you heading south? Tomorrow, I said. Early. Good for you. That night, I walked through the empty rooms. The house sounded different without furniture. Bigger, lonelier, full of echoes. In the kitchen, the overhead light flickered once, then steadied. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and wood dust. I stood in the doorway and listened to the hum of the refrigerator, the one I'd bought 10 years ago with my tax return, the one that outlasted every relationship I ever had. Then I turned it off. I left the window cracked just slightly, the way Mom used to when she said houses needed to breathe. Before I left, I baked one last pie. Not for me, I didn't even taste it. For the house. Pumpkin, with cinnamon and nutmeg, the way Mom taught me. The crust wasn't perfect. The edges were uneven, the way they always were when my hands were shaking. When it was done, I set it on the counter beside a folded note. The note said, "For whoever comes next, may this house be kind to you. It's been kind to me, even when I didn't notice." I didn't sign my name. Then after a long moment, I wrote one more line. Happy Thanksgiving. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the porch with a blanket and a cup of cold tea, watching the sky change from deep blue to pale gray. The maple tree rustled in the wind. Its last few leaves trembled, gold and fragile, and I thought, that's me. When the sun came up, I carried my single suitcase to the car. One suitcase for 35 years. I didn't look back right away. I drove to the end of the block before stopping. The house was small in the rearview mirror, but I could still see the porch light glowing, the one I'd forgotten to turn off, or maybe hadn't. Either way, it felt right. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. There's a difference between sadness and release. Sadness pulls you under. Release lets you breathe. The drive south felt unreal. The radio played songs I didn't recognize. The air grew warmer mile by mile, and for the first time, no one was waiting for me anywhere. I stopped once at a roadside diner in Georgia. The waitress poured me coffee and asked, "Traveling for the holidays?" "Something like that," I said. She smiled. "Lucky you, getting away from the chaos." I nodded. Yeah. Finally. By the time I reached Florida, the sun was sinking low over the water, painting everything in gold. The ocean stretched wide and endless, like a promise I hadn't known I was allowed to keep. I found a small rental. White walls, a view of the beach, nothing fancy. The woman who showed it to me was talkative, kind. "It's quiet here," she said. "You'll sleep like a baby." I smiled. That's all I want. That night, I unpacked what little I had, opened the balcony door, and stood there as the wind tangled my hair. The sea smelled like freedom and salt and everything I'd missed. I took out my phone. Dozens of messages blinked on the screen. Neela, "Hey, what's going on? We're on our way." Uli, "Sis, are you home? Why aren't you answering?" Then later, "The house is empty. Where are you? I read them all." Then turned the phone face down on the table. They'd figure it out soon enough. The sale, the new owners, the pie on the counter. I wasn't trying to punish them. I was teaching them something I'd never known myself, that love doesn't mean sacrifice without end. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming across the room. The air was warm, and outside, a bird was singing, sharp, insistent, alive. For the first time in 20 years, I didn't have a plan. No grocery list, no schedule, no one to feed. I made coffee, carried it to the balcony, and sat down. The horizon shimmered with light. Somewhere, miles away, my sisters were probably arguing, confused, maybe even angry. But that was okay. One day, they'd understand. Because I finally did. People think freedom feels loud, like fireworks, like celebration. It doesn't. It feels like silence. It feels like a house growing smaller in your rearview mirror, a pie cooling on an empty counter. The sound of waves reminding you that you're still here. It feels like breathing without permission. That's what Florida was for me, not an escape, but a beginning. And as I watched the sunlight spill across the water, I whispered to the wind, "Happy Thanksgiving, Mom." Then I smiled, knowing that for once the holiday belonged to me. But if you think that's where the story ends, if you're waiting for the part where I drive into the sunset, wind in my hair, drink in hand, I'm afraid this isn't that kind of fairy tale. No. After I canceled Thanksgiving, my sisters lost their minds. And for the first time, I saw what their love really looked like when it stopped getting what it wanted. It started 3 days after I reached Florida. I'd been sitting on the balcony, reading a paperback I wasn't really following, when my phone began to buzz. Over and over. First Nyla, then Uli, then both, one after another like an alarm I couldn't shut off. When I finally answered, I didn't say hello. I just listened. "Are you insane?" Nyla's voice came first. Sharp. Trembling. We got to the house and it was empty. Empty, Karen. There was a pie on the counter like some creepy goodbye note, and a sold sign in the yard. What the hell is going on? I stayed quiet. "Do you hear me?" she shouted. "You sold Mom's house. Without telling us? Without even warning us?" Then Uli joined in, her voice higher, more frantic. "Why would you do that? Are you okay? You're not okay, right? This is some kind of breakdown?" "I'm fine," I said finally. My voice sounded calm even to me. "I just needed a change." "A change?" Nyla practically spit the word. "You don't get to just sell the house, Karen. That house was ours too. You raised us there. You can't just disappear like this." "I didn't disappear," I said. "You found me." "That's not the point," Uli cried. "We had plans. Everyone was coming. Josh invited people. We looked like complete idiots showing up to an empty house. Do you even understand how humiliating that was?" Something in me cracked. Not like glass shattering, but like a door unlocking. "You're humiliated?" I said quietly. "You?" "Karen. I spent 20 years feeding you, cleaning up after you, covering your bills, and you're humiliated because you didn't get your holiday photo? Don't twist this," Nyla snapped. "You chose to take care of us. No one forced you." I almost laughed. "You were 16 when Mom died. Who exactly did you think was going to do it?" A pause. Heavy, uncomfortable silence. Then Uli said, small and defensive, "You didn't have to sell the house." "Yes," I said. "I did." Neela's voice went icy. "You could have at least told us. Or split the money. You think because your name's on the deed you get to keep everything?" "I don't think, Nyla. That's how it works." "Oh, that's rich," she said. "After everything we've done for you, what have you done for me?" I asked. The question hung in the air like smoke. Neither of them answered. Then Neela said, low and furious, "You need help. Serious help. Because this isn't you." "It is me," I said. "You just never met her before." She hung up. The silence after the call felt heavy, like wet sand pressing against my chest. For years, I'd imagined that if I ever stopped serving, stopped sacrificing, my sisters would finally see me. Really see me. But instead, they treated my freedom like an act of war. And maybe it was. The messages started pouring in within hours. From Nyla. "You can't do this, Karen. It's cruel. Josh says this looks like mania. Please call me. You're scaring us. We're contacting an attorney?" From Uli. "What's wrong with you? Did someone convince you to sell? You don't even like Florida. You're losing it. Please come home." Home. That word. It made something twist in my stomach. The next day, I turned off my phone for the first time in my adult life. When I turned it back on, there were 53 missed calls. Then came the emails. Longer, colder. Nyla had found her rhythm, her lawyer tone. The one she used when she wanted to remind me she was the responsible one. Subject, urgent. You need to respond. Karen, we've spoken to a family friend who's a real estate agent, and it sounds like you didn't have to sell the house that quickly. You could have listed it under a trust for all of us. Selling it on your own was selfish and impulsive. We think you might be having a breakdown. Please call Dr. Benton. I gave him your number. He specializes in stress-related psychosis. We love you. We just want you to get help. Nyla. I read it twice, then deleted it. That was the first time I realized love can sound like control when it's filtered through entitlement. 2 days later, Cheryl called. Honey, she said carefully, your sisters reached out to me. My chest went cold. What did they say? That they're concerned. They asked if you seemed stable when we did the sale. Said they might contest it if you weren't of sound mind. I laughed, not the kind that feels good, but the kind that sounds like breaking glass. Did you tell them I was fine? I did, she said. But you should know, they're angry, and angry people do dumb things. Yeah, I said. They do. The next morning, Uli showed up. I didn't even know how she found me. I was sitting in the small cafe near my rental when I saw her through the window, frantic, exhausted, eyes swollen from crying. She spotted me instantly and stormed inside. Are you out of your mind? She demanded. You just left. You left everything. I stared at her, at the little sister I'd raised, the one I'd tucked in at night, fed, clothed, defended, and I felt nothing. I didn't leave everything, I said quietly. I brought myself. That's not funny, she shouted. People were starting to stare. You sold our childhood. You think money fixes that? I'm not asking it to. You're acting like a stranger, she said, voice cracking. You're cold and weird and, God, you're selfish. The word hit me harder than I expected. For a moment, I wanted to defend myself, to explain, to remind her of all the years I'd given up. But then I realized she didn't want to understand. She wanted me to go back to the version of myself that made her life easier. And that woman was gone. I'm done, Uli, I said. I'm not your safety net anymore. Her face went red. You can't do that. Families don't just quit. You raised us. You don't get to stop. I looked her straight in the eye. Yes, I do. She stood there for a long moment, shaking, then turned and walked out. No goodbye, just the echo of her footsteps. That night, I found her note under my door. If Mom could see what you've done, she'd be ashamed. I folded it once neatly and slid it into the trash. The following week was hell. Nyla contacted my workplace to ask if I was in crisis. She told my boss I was acting erratic and might pose a liability. I got an apologetic call from HR asking if I needed time off. That was the final straw. I called a lawyer. Her name was Dana Holt. Sharp, calm, the kind of woman who spoke like every word had already been weighed. I told her everything, the sale, the messages, the accusations. When I finished, she nodded slowly. You've done nothing wrong. You were the sole owner. But your sisters are trying to manipulate you through guilt and public pressure. I've seen this before. What do? I asked. From now on, she said, you don't talk to them directly. I'll handle any communication. Legally, financially, everything. I hesitated. They're my sisters. She met my eyes. Then maybe it's time they learned what that word really means. The first time Nyla called after that, Dana answered instead. She told me later that Nyla's voice cracked halfway through yelling. She said you're being brainwashed, Dana reported, typing something into her laptop. Then she said you owe them emotional damages. I almost smiled. That sounds like her. Want me to respond? Yes, I said. Tell her she can contact me through you. Perfect, Dana said. That'll end it. But it didn't. They escalated. Emails turned into threats. Uli posted online about how I'd abandoned them, how money changed me. Friends and extended family reached out, confused, whispering versions of, "We just want to understand what happened." I didn't explain. I didn't justify. I'd spent my whole life explaining myself. Every choice, every sacrifice, every burned out part of me that they mistook for love. Now I was done explaining. Weeks passed. The ocean became my witness, the steady rhythm reminding me that life could move without permission. Some mornings I woke up with guilt pressing on my chest like a stone. Other mornings I woke up light, untethered. Freedom isn't simple, it's a muscle that needs practice. One evening, as the sun dropped low, I opened my laptop and wrote them both one final message. I didn't send it, but I needed to write it. Nyla, Uli, I know you're angry. Maybe you always will be. You think I betrayed you, but what you don't understand is that I've been betraying myself for 20 years. I gave you everything I had, not because I owed it, but because I loved you. And somehow love turned into debt. You call me selfish for choosing peace, but you never called yourself selfish for taking mine away. I hope someday you'll understand that I didn't sell the house out of spite. I sold it because I finally realized I was living inside a mausoleum of expectations. I'm not coming back. I wish you well. Karen. I closed the laptop and let the unsent email sit there, my invisible boundary. Christmas came and went quietly. No calls, no texts. Just the sound of the waves and the soft hum of my new life. Sometimes I thought of the house, the pie cooling on the counter, the echo in the hallways, and wondered if the new owners felt the history there. Maybe they'd already painted over the pencil marks on the wall, maybe not. Either way, it wasn't mine anymore. And for the first time in decades, that felt right. One evening, months later, Cheryl called again. "You know," she said, "your sisters stopped by my office." "Oh?" "They wanted to see if the sale could be reversed." I told them no, of course, but I thought you should know. "Thanks," I said. She paused. "You did the right thing, Karen. I've seen plenty of families tear each other apart over less. You saved yourself." After she hung up, I sat there for a long time listening to the waves. I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not at them, not even at myself, just free. These days, my life is simple. I work remotely for the clinic, part-time now. I walk the beach every morning. I bake sometimes, not out of obligation, but because I like the smell of cinnamon and butter. I make one pie every Thanksgiving. I don't invite anyone. I eat a single slice and leave the rest on the shore for the gulls. I don't check my phone much. Dana still forwards the occasional email from my sisters. Attempts at contact, some hostile, some half-hearted apologies, written like press statements. I never reply. Some things don't need closure, they just need distance. If you ask me whether I miss them, and the answer is complicated, I miss the girls they were, not the women they became. I miss laughter without resentment, dinners without expectation. But I don't miss the wait. Sometimes at night I dream of the old kitchen, the smell of roasting turkey, Mom's voice humming softly in the background. But in the dream, it's not my sisters sitting at the table. It's me, just me smiling, eating a piece of pie still warm from the oven. And when I wake up, there's sunlight on my pillow, the sound of the ocean outside, and a peace so deep it almost scares me. Freedom isn't a door that swings open all at once. It's a series of small locks clicking free one after another. The first was selling the house. The second was saying no. The third, the hardest, was realizing I didn't owe forgiveness to people who mistook my silence for weakness. Now, every day feels like the first breath after a long dive. And if my sisters ever wonder how I could just walk away, I hope someday they'll understand. And I didn't walk away. I finally walked toward myself.